Mark Kilroy's parents, Jim and Helen Kilroy, were, as I mentioned earlier in the show, scheduled to appear here today. Understandably, due to extreme emotional strain, they canceled their appearance here at the last minute. Here are Mark's parents sharing some of their thoughts and feelings about their son's horrendous murder.
Mark was just a good young fella. The way he was, the way we were when we were with him, you know, he made us proud. We loved him a lot.
He just must be possessed by the devil. That would be the only explanation for such a bizarre and, you know, for what they did.
I think they'll never really ask for forgiveness for what they did. I hope they do someday. Because someday I'd like them to go up and apologize to Mark.
Really, we're at peace knowing that Mark is safe and are with our Lord. And now it's just a matter of all of us, we're going to miss him a lot.
I don't know of any other way to explain what happened on that ranch other than these were people possessed by the devil. Do you, Mr. Maddox?
I don't really think there is an adequate way. I think the tragic part of it is that it could happen to nearly any of us at any time.
It could have been you, Bill. Do you think about that a lot?
I thought about it. I try not to think about it. I try to stay away from thinking about that, but it gets scary.
You think about it, Gwen, that it could have been your son?
Sure.
Mr. Maddox, what happened at that ranch?
Well, basically, they held Mark in a small shack for about 11 hours. They wrapped his head with thick duct tape, this kind of gray, really heavy tape. They gave him bread and water, and they assured him during the course of his captivity there that he would not be hurt. And then during the last period of time, the 12th hour, he was killed. He was struck from behind with a machete that, in all probability, severed his spinal cord at the back of the head, and then they then engaged in some ritualistic dismembering of the body. And there were a number of explanations. For instance, the reason he was killed prior to the 13th hour, we've been told, was because of the belief that you could not hold him into the 13th hour because it would be bad luck for them. And he was dismembered. His legs were cut off just above the kneecaps. After he was killed, they took out his brain and drained his body of blood, and then those were placed in a cauldron that I think you will probably show the cauldron at some time later in the program. And then they...
Stop to say here that during Pat's trip, we haven't talked to Pat yet, but during her trip to the scene of the murders, she took photos of the site, and we just want to take a look at what you saw there. Pat, can you tell us what we're looking at here?
Okay, what you're looking at here is a ritual cauldron, but they call it, in this particular form of belief system or religion, a Naganga. And in that cauldron, of course, there are various things placed by the people or the participants of this, such as blood, animals. There was a turtle placed in there, the brain, hearts, things like that, because this ritual cauldron is basically the life system of the Naganga, or of their ritual and belief system. And they believe that certain gods have to be propitiated or served or satisfied with certain elements, and this goes into this ritual cauldron.
Next photo.
That is the duct tape that was wrapped around Mark Kilroy's eyes. That is the grave where he was buried. And that is just the hut. Inside the hut, of course, is where they held their rituals.
And so...
This is what is called an oshosi, and that generally is a ritualistic artifact used, and this appears to be, according to some of the experts who are really involved with this, appears to be, that's an artifact that's used to ward away police, protection from police.
So their whole purpose of killing Mark and the 12 others was they thought to protect them from police, is that right?
Yes, the purpose was to set up a black magic shield around them that would protect them not only from apprehension, but also would protect them from from bullets, and also would give them good luck. And Mark was sacrificed after a particularly good marijuana transaction that took place. And
So this all stems from drugs?
It stems from drugs as a background. It could be done without drugs. We did not find that the participants in this particular activity were actually using drugs at the time other than alcohol. They inside the shack there. They would do the sacrificing. You passed the pictures, but there were wires from the top from which they would hang the bodies. They had a sacrificial table there, and then they would smoke cigars and sit there and enjoy the good life and celebrate their good times of having brought in a tremendous amount of money from the drug deals, drink a lot of alcohol. And then in this particular case also, another tragic thing that happened is that after the death and in the burial ceremony, they put Mark there, but they took it and ran a wire through the spinal cord, and that wire was left showing from the ground, wherein after the body decomposed, they were going to go back and pull out the bones, because the bones are used in a sacrifice. I mean, in their religious rituals, the bones give them certain blessings in theory, and their religion may or may not have been well defined, but it is very clearly a form of an occult type religion.
So they're going to make a necklace out of his bones?
Out of his backbone, that's correct. And that is it's not an uncommon thing for them to use bones in the different religious activities.
How prevalent is this? I know, just as you all did, when I awakened to hear this story, I thought the world had gone mad. But having done shows like this before and being somewhat knowledgeable about what's going on in this country, I realized that what happened to Mark Kilroy, which is one of the reasons we're doing this show, happens throughout this country to children who were snatched from the streets. And perhaps maybe because it was Mark Kilroy and he's a pre-med student and was older and his parents absolutely persevered, some attention is being brought to this subject, but it happens all the time.
Well, I think that the troubling aspect of this is that we do not know how often it happens. In this particular case, we found 15 bodies. Only about 5 or 6 or maybe half were used in ritualistic type killings. The other were killed as a result of revenge type motives or other kind of broken drug deals. But there are all kinds of people disappeared that we never know where they are. Right. We've had all kinds of reports of missing children where they are practicing a lot of these type things. We just don't have any way of knowing. But I think there's one message that's very clear, though, that if a parent or a loved one sees someone else involved in this kind of activity, this kind of offbeat type activity, I think that it must be taken very serious, and then there should be intervention if at all possible.
Yeah, we're going to meet a parent later on whose son was involved with other boys who were doing Satan worship, but she didn't take it seriously enough.
Well, I think that's the kind of thing that happens all the time, and I think where people really need to look is where there is a heavy Caribbean influence, particularly from the islands, where there are a lot of people around that have grown up practicing these kind of religions. But again, human sacrifice.
But you don't want to indict all Caribbeans here.
No, absolutely not.
Thank you very much.
We won't.
Because I love the islands.
Well, I love the islands too. But yeah. But these practices have come from Africa into the Caribbean islands, a mixture of a number of different religions.
This particular religion you talk about.
Right.
Yes. What do you want to say, Pat?
This particular religion, yes. One of the things, though, that I work more with than the Afro-Caribbean religions, this was more of a surprise to me, is the ritualistic crime and murders that are going on in this country, many but done by adolescents, and they are for Satan worship, and they're not Hispanic in background. They're
or Caribbean or African
they're white, middle to upper middle class kids.
Right.
And it's not an epidemic, but it's very widespread.
The photos you're about to see right now are of the 2 alleged ringleaders in the Kilroy murder and the others found in Matamoros, Mexico. These people have not been found, but if you have information or leads, please contact your local authorities. Adolfo de Jesus Constanza, considered to be the godfather of this group, and Sarah Aldrete, suspected to be Costanzo's girlfriend and partner. If you have any information, you contact somebody immediately. I wouldn't necessarily go up and approach them. When we come back, we'll also meet a woman whose baby was used for human sacrifice in a satanic ritual, and hear her extraordinary story of her escape from this cult. Back in a moment.